I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of this resolution. I thank the gentleman from Ohio for bringing this issue up. It is late. This war started 10 years ago. It's about time we talked about it. It was said earlier on it is hard to quit a war, and we shouldn't be quitting. But I'll tell you what the real problem is. It's too easy to start a war. It's too easy to get involved, and that is our problem. The founders of this country tried very hard to prevent this kind of a dilemma that we're in now, getting involved in no-win wars and nobody knowing exactly who the enemy is. The war was started and justified by quoting and using the War Powers Resolution written in 1973. That was written after the fiasco of Vietnam to try to prevent the problems of slipping into war. Yet that resolution in itself was unconstitutional because it literally legalized war for 90 days. So it did exactly the opposite. So here we are, the 90-day permission for war at that time now is close to 10 years. I'm afraid that this is a little bit too little, hopefully not too late for us to do something about this. Are we going to do it for 10 more years? How long are we going to stay? And the enemy is said to be the Taliban. Well, the Taliban, they certainly don't like us, and we don't like them. And the more we kill, the more Taliban we get. But I want to quote the first line of the resolution passed back in 2001. What the purpose of giving the president the power, which was an illegal transfer of power to the president to pursue war at will. It said the authorities to authorize the use of United States Armed Forces against those responsible for the recent attacks launched against the United States. The Taliban didn't launch an attack against the United States. The government of Afghanistan didn't launch it. The best evidence is that of those 20 individuals, 2 of them might have passed through Afghanistan. A lot of the planning was done in Germany and Spain, and the training was done here in the United States. Oh yes, the image is that they all conspired, a small group of people, with bin Laden, and they made this decision. Right now, the evidence is not there to prove that, but certainly bin Laden was very sympathetic, loved it, and wanted to take credit for it. And one of the reasons why he wanted to take credit was that he said it would do 3 things for what he wanted. First, it would enhance his recruitment efforts for Al-Qaeda and his attack against Western powers who have become overly involved in control of the Middle East and have had a plan for 20 years to remake the Middle East. He also said that the consequence of 9/11 will be that we will bog the American people down in a no-win war and demoralize the people. And they're working on it. There's still a lot of moral support, but there's a lot of people in this country now. The country is totally bankrupt, and we're spending trillions of dollars on these useless wars. The people will become demoralized because history shows that all empires end because they expand too far and they bankrupt the country, just as the Soviet system came down. And that's what bin Laden was hoping for. He also said that the dollar spent will bankrupt this country. And we are bankrupt, and yet there is no hesitation to quit spending 1 cent overseas. We built embassies in Baghdad, we built embassy in Kabul, billion-dollar embassies, fortresses, and it's all necessary. Nobody is really concerned. If people were concerned about the disastrous effect of debt on this country, we would change our foreign policy and we would be safer for it. We are not safer because of this foreign policy. It's a policy of intervention that has been going on for a long time, and it will eventually end. This war is an illegal war. This war is an immoral war. This war is an unconstitutional war. And the least you could say, it's illegitimate. There's no real purpose in this. The Taliban did not attack us on 9/11. Do you know, after we went into Afghanistan, immediately the concerns were shifted to remaking the Middle East. We went into Iraq, used this as a justification. It was nothing more than an excuse. Most Americans, the majority of Americans, still believe that Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11. And I imagine most Americans believe the Taliban had something to do with 9/11, and it's not true. We need to change our foreign policy and come back to our senses and defend this country and not pretend to be the policeman of the world.
Gentlemen.
I get to my God through Christ. Christ to me is a man of peace. He is for peace. He's not for war. He doesn't justify preemptive declared war. I strongly believe that there is a Christian doctrine of just war, and I believe this nation has drifted from that. No matter what the rationales are, we have drifted from that, and it's very, very dangerous, and I see in many ways being unchristian. And to justify what we do in the name of Christianity, I think is very dangerous and not part of what Christianity is all about. Christ came here for spiritual reasons, not secular war and boundaries and geography. And yet we are now dedicating so much of our aggressive activity in the name of God. But God, He is the Prince of Peace. That is what I see from my God, and through Christ, I vote for peace.
You're being taken, I think it's fair to say, more seriously by the media this time, frankly, including me, because your issues, limiting the size and scope of government, adhering to constitutional principles, are center stage for the Republican Party this time around. If you were elected, what's the first thing you'd do?
I would say nobody's perfect. I don't know all the answers. I don't want to run people's lives and run the world and run the economy, so my qualifications are a little bit different. But compared to others, I would say I'm pretty well equipped, and I've had a fair amount of experience. I've been in the military. I was in the military 5 years. That gives me a little bit of experience. So I would say I'm pretty well equipped. But to brag that I can run things, I don't do that, because that's not what a president is supposed to do. A president is supposed to guarantee and work for the protection of liberty and allow people to take care of their problem.
Michael Gerson, who was the chief speechwriter for George W. Bush, wrote this week. It is social Darwinism. It is the arrogance of the strong. It is contempt for the vulnerable and suffering.
I have no idea what he's talking about. Anyway, it makes no sense. But the question...
Well, he's basically saying... But he's saying... Well, all right, here's what I think he's trying to say. The government has a role to enforce social norms and to protect people.
And if you accept that, they can accept everything you do with your life, and everything you do, that justifies all the economic intervention, that justifies the intervention in freedom of speech, it subjects interference in our religious value. But to take my philosophy of freedom and the Constitution, property rights and contracts, and turn it into a cliche and say, oh, you're for legalizing marijuana. That is so grossly distorting my views. I want to legalize freedom of choice. I want to enforce states' rights. I don't like prohibitions. Prohibition of alcohol was horrible. States' control of this is one thing. We had 150 years where heroin and cocaine were legal. At the same time, if you regulate those values, you can regulate homeschooling, you can regulate private schooling, you justify all these regulations. And if you're for freedom, this whole idea that we can't be responsible for ourselves, you remember the reaction that, oh, we're safe and secure and smart because we need the government to tell us what to do. But history shows that individual choice, most people make good choices. And the big important here is, as a physician and one that has studied this issue very well, drug usage and drug addiction should be a disease like we treat alcoholism. And what we have done to these people in filling our prisons for nonviolent crimes, that whole thing is being reassessed. And I think the politicians and the pundits are way behind the people on this issue.
You talk a lot about the Constitution. You say Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are all unconstitutional.
Technically they are, but I
Why?
also just...
Why?
Because there's no authority there. Article 1, Section 8 doesn't say I can set up a insurance program for people. What part of the Constitution you
Well,
get from? The liberals are the ones that use this general welfare clause.
Well,
Those are
okay,
the liberals.
all right. Well, I don't know that I'm a liberal, but let's put it up on the screen, because that's exactly the point. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Doesn't Social Security come under promoting the general welfare?
Absolutely not.
Why
General
not?
welfare is the general condition. Maybe sound currency is general welfare. Maybe markets, maybe a judicial system, maybe a national defense. But this is specific welfare. This justifies the whole welfare state. The military-industrial complex, the welfare to foreigners, the welfare state that imprisons our people and impoverishes our people and gives us our recessions. So no, why would you have Article 1, Section A, and why would you have the Amendment number 9 and 10? That means there's no reason for Article 1, number 10. If you believe that, the General Revenue Clause, that is such an extreme liberal viewpoint that has been mistaught in our schools for so long, and that's what we have to reverse, that very notion that you're presenting.
Congressman, it's not just a liberal view. It was the decision of the Supreme Court in 1937 when they said that Social Security was constitutional under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution.
And the Constitution and the court said slavery was legal too, and we had to reverse that. So I tell you, just because a court in 37 went very liberal on us and expanded the role of government, no, I think original intent is not a bad idea. I think limitation of government power, if we aren't clear on this, we're going to get into a mess. Our government's going to get very big, and we're going to have a very big deficit, and we're going to have a financial crisis, and it's this type of thinking that is leading us to that very problem that we're facing today.
You caused a stir this week when you told an Iowa radio station that President Obama was wrong to order a secret raid to get bin Laden without telling the Pakistani government first. Let's listen.
I don't think it was necessary, no.
No, it wasn't necessary to do.
It was absolutely not necessary, and I think respect for the rule of law and world law, international law.
You really believe that we could have trusted, let me just ask the question, you really believe we could have trusted the Pakistanis not to warn bin Laden?
Well, not under today's circumstances is a big problem, but see, you distorted that. You said it was wrong. That is not, I didn't even use the word wrong. I said it could have been done differently, and it should have been. I mean, how about colleague?
You said it was not necessary. It was absolutely not necessary.
Yeah,
and then you talked about the rule of law.
Okay, but that's different than saying it's wrong. I'm just saying there was another way of doing it. So let me explain.
Well, I know, but I'm asking you, do you think that if we had told the Pakistanis that they would have kept our secret?
Well, go by history. Did they help us arrest about 15 other vicious criminals and deliver them? The people that were responsible for the bombing in 1993, they have captured them and bring them to us. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They helped us capture him. But, you know, why are we having trouble with the government? Why are we stirring up a civil war in Pakistan? It's because we've been bombing him. This emphasizes so clearly what I'm talking about my foreign policy. I'm saying that when you bomb a country, you violate their security, their national security, and their sovereignty. We're doing that. At the same time, we're giving them billions of dollars. Then you wonder why the government gets in trouble with their people. So I would say that why didn't we do it like we did with George Bush? He did it, and he used the Pakistani government, and we arrested these people, and they've been convicted.
We got a minute left, and I got to ask you. I just want to ask you one more question in this regard, sir. Some of your biggest supporters are from the Tea Party. Judson Phillips, who is the head of the Tea Party nation, says you're flat wrong about warning the Pakistanis first and getting their permission. He said this: if there is any doubt, Ron Paul should not even get near the Oval Office, even on a tour of the White House. He has just revealed it.
Well,
that's from the Tea Party.
If you use him as a spokesman for the Tea Party, then he's a Johnny-come-lately. He doesn't have the vaguest idea about the people who rally around me and what the young people are thinking. The people from 18 to 25, they're sick of this. They're sick of this spending. They want somebody to stand up and say no to the spending, no to our foreign policy, and yes to liberty, and yes to our Constitution. When we have that, we will have reformed, and we will have our true revolution that we need.
Congressman Paul, we want to thank you so much for coming in today. Good luck on the campaign trail. Please come back, sir.
You're welcome.